Knife dope. More dope. Come and get your fix. What's up, fuckers? Your boy's back with a fresh batch of dope. Knife dope. That's right, people. The hits don't stop. Well. Made it back home safe from Bladeshow 2024. Had a great goddamn time. Linked up with some of the homies, and we've now got a pretty solid crew of like-minded individuals. I tell you, this was the first time that my actual partner in crime, one half of the Blade Cartel, Duty Low, actually got to meet in person, and he did not disappoint. We had such a fun time. Eagerly looking forward to doing it again next year. Also had the pleasure of finally meeting Mr. Danny Boy, otherwise known as the Insider. And then I met a couple of new guys as well who also did not fail to let me down. Got a chance to meet Mr. Roger Cooey, great goddamn guy. And then we also managed to meet Mr. Byron for the first time. Roger and Byron were two guys I had not known prior to the show, but they turned out to be pleasant gentlemen. Now, there was a few low points of the show as well. Case in point, I didn't get to the show until literally 2 minutes after closing on Friday. That's another whole goddamn story. I think I will touch on it briefly on the upcoming episode of the Blade Cartel. And then I did have some letdowns as far as knife purchases go. But we're going to get into all that shit. And so without further ado, let's get to the dope. Quick update on this. This one was the knife that I recently got from being modded. This is my Wee Nefarious. I had sent this out for a full custom DLC, DLC finish, and then with anodized hardware. After the DLC service, though, I did have to get it sharpened. Didn't want to take this task on myself, as I am not, I'm not the best when it comes to sharpening, and I wanted it to be done professionally. Took the knife with me to Bladeshow, and it was actually done for me for free by Worksharp. So big thank you to Worksharp. They actually did it with the with their Ken Onion, grinder, belt grinder. It looked so goddamn easy when the guy did it. Maybe took about 5 minutes, and it came out fantastic. So this will start to get some pocket time. And then also, before we get to the rest of what I got from Bladeshow, this was a pickup I got the week of the Bladeshow, literally days before Bladeshow. I tried to be, for the most part, I was pretty disciplined as far as not buying shit before the show. But, FOMO is real. And I ended up buying this. Didn't do a video on it because, the week leading up to Bladeshow was kind of hectic. I'll just go ahead and share with you guys. This is the Remet Swordfish. There had been a lot of talk about this knife. It is a gravity knife. It's got a couple of innovations that not other gravity knives have. Mainly is going to be their locking mechanism. You can see here when you actuate that slide, it actually opens up the jaws. Now, I have been a big supporter of the XOM from Riot. As it stands right now, I still favor the XOM, but this one is growing on me. It is starting to break in a little bit more, so I'm kind of able to give it the thrust deployment. When I first got it, the thrust deployment wouldn't work. You had to just literally turn it down and then turn it back up to get it to properly deploy. But I think it's breaking in. But don't know if this will stick around. If it speaks to you and you're interested in it, reach out to your boy, as I will give you a great goddamn deal. It's a week old. Haven't cut shit with it, but it is impressive and wanted to share with you guys. Okay, now a couple of other things I want to touch on briefly is just going to be a couple of companies that I wanted to highlight. So let's get to the list. First off is going to be OG Goat, original Goat that is. You can use code FUCKER to save yourself 15%. This was the first time I actually got to meet them in person, and you know, they were wonderful. They were so welcoming. I'm such a you know, I'm a proud affiliate of theirs. I will always promote them. They've got some big things coming, people. Trust me when I tell you that. They had a couple of exclusives, like they had some titanium scales for the MSI. They looked great. Didn't pick up anything because they didn't have what I was looking for per se. But Mr. Dan, the boss lady, Miss Kathy, and Mr. Marty were wonderful individuals. They are continuing to grow. So yes, there is growing pains along the way, but you know, I am a proud supporter of them. I advise you guys to do the same. Now let's talk about a company that I'm excited about. I saw one of their knives, and that is going to be Giant Mouse. Now, last year was my first purchase from the Giant Mouse line, you know, and as well as the Ace line. I think I bought a Ace line knife. I bought one. I bought the Nazca. That one didn't stick around, but I ended up getting the GM11, which has blown me away. It's one of my favorite purchases this year. They've got a titanium frame lock version of their Rio. People, it is exquisite. I tried to get them to sell me the prototype. They weren't having it. They've kind of, they alluded to the fact that it should be in the streets within about 6 months. That's the timeline for them. But you have been warned. I'm giving you giving you a little bit of inside information. When that frame lock version of the Rio becomes available, I highly recommend it, man. It was done well, very well, I should say. Now, a couple more companies I want to give highlights to, and then we'll touch on the rest. American Blade Works, ABW, still, you know, American-made company, small company. He didn't have anything new except for a slip joint. It was priced at $150, 100% USA, Magna Cut. Those things sold out. You know, the price was fantastic. I'm not the big slip joint guy, but Mr. Michael Martin and his wife were very pleasant as well. So another company I'm excited about. Then there is my first Chinese company that I want to give shout out to, and that is Vosteed. Last year at my first blade show, I had actually met the owner last year. You know, had a little bit of dialogue with him. Met him again this year. Spoke for quite a while. They have got so many cool things happening with this company. So many new models. They've got a pivot lock nightshade. Really wasn't my jam, but they are starting to dial in that pivot lock. They're making the actual knife actually a little bit slimmer. That's kind of been my my biggest issue with these pivot locks, is usually they're so thick. But theirs was slimmer than normal. They've had a mini, I got to try the mini PSYOP. I also got to try a couple of new models, prototypes that they had. I'm drawing a blank now, but love what Vosteed's doing. They were just so pleasant, and they had plenty of knives for sale. They actually gave away all their prototypes at the end of the show, minus the mini nightshade. So, you know, things like that is what makes these Chinese companies so popular, is they come to the show fully stocked with plenty of knives to sell. I think that is one of the issues when it comes to the American companies, is I don't know what it is they're bringing, but it just feels like it's never enough. But anyways, Vosteed was very good to deal with. Then there's this company, and this will be my last one as far as companies that impressed me, Aldenov. Now, this gentleman was actually at the CKF table. He was sharing a table with CKF. Unfortunately, I do not remember the name of the model, but it was absolutely outstanding. It wasn't cheap, but it was 100% Russian made. And this is the name of the company. I just check out the website. Wish I remembered the name of the model. Did I write it down in the back? No, I didn't. But also very, very impressed by them. Now let's talk about two quick disappointments. First one's going to be ProTech knives. Now, when I say the word disappointment, it isn't because of anything like that they personally did or that their knives, but it was something that happened with the TR3, which is going to be the manual version of it. It's a knife that I have been anticipating, trying to add to the collection. They hadn't dropped yet, but I was kind of thinking they would have a few at Bladeshow. They brought 3 of them. They were sold out within a minute on that very first day. Now, the disappointing part is that they didn't even keep a prototype to allow us to try, to experience. And that was the total opposite when it came to the Chinese and overseas companies. They would at least keep a prototype around to allow us to, to experience it, So I really wish ProTech would have done that. Still a big fan of them. Love their business practice. Love everything else about them. I just wish that they would have kept at least one prototype around for us to try out. And then the last slight disappointment I had was from Chavez. I had their auto chub on my radar, but the price, man, it was the USA made product, utility knife, OTF utility knife, $350, and it was an aluminum. I feel that's about $100 too high. Granted, it is USA made, and it was fantastic. It fired the fuck out, but I just think that the price was just a little too high, so that was disappointing. All right, people, now let's get to the dope. First purchase was from this company. Let me explain. This is Three Rivers Manufacturing, TRM for short. USA company, makes fantastic knives. I've only added one to the collection at one point prior to the show. Ended up kicking that down the road. But when I got to the show, they had these Mike Irie custom hollow regrind versions of the Atom. When I got there, when I first got to the show on day 2, I managed to buy one. I bought one with camo carbon scales, and I even ended up buying the aftermarket lizard skin titanium scales from them. Everything was great. That was my purchase. I was trying to stay American made. Took it to the hotel room that night. When I attempted to put the scales on, the blade went far left. So we had another gentleman in the group who had an issue with his. He ended up going back there. They managed to fix it. So on Sunday morning, I went back to TRM, gave them the knife. They tried for about 30 minutes, couldn't get it. Tried to put back the original scales on the knife. Then they noticed that the actual grind itself was uneven. At that point, they offered to me to take the knife back and then, send it back to me after it got fixed. That was not something I wanted to do. I mean, who wants to go to a blade show, buy a knife, and then have to wait for it? So I politely declined that and got a full refund. But I did give them my contact information and told them to, once they got one figured out, that I would be interested in buying it again. So I guess this is to be continued. But that was disappointing. So once that happened, I had to change my strategy, and I ended up grabbing some other knives that I'm happy with. So we're going to start with the lowest purchase on what I bought, and we'll get to the highest purchase. First purchase I made at Bladeshow was this. 2 sets of the Kraken Omega springs. Now, the reason why this was a must for me, I had reached out to Vu, who was actually working the table for Pyrotech, and I wanted these springs. I had a set of these springs that I put in as a matter of fact, the TRM Shadow. Totally changed that knife's action for me. And I have been a big supporter of the springs, a big believer in the springs since then. These are actually constructed of piano string. So they're not your typical Omega spring material. These were so important to me that I grabbed 2 sets. $10, people. And I managed to get 2 sets. So big thanks to Pyrotech for that. Then my next low budget purchase was this, an Ulti clip. This is going to change my my ability to carry my Spyderco Mule Team 15V knife in the pocket. It's going to make me allow me to use my sheath as a pocket sheath. So eagerly anticipating that. So that was that. Now let's get to the very first purchase as far as knife goes, not counting that TRM. We got one coming from Cold Steel. Now, Cold Steel was another company that really impressed me. They were great with customer service, very engaging, and they had some new models. And this is one of them. This one, by far, blew me away from Cold Steel. And this is the FM-1. So Foxtrot Michael-1. This came in at $190 for this version. They had a blacked out version that was $220. But Mrs. Slash actually sold me mine for $180. So big thank you to them. Manufactured in Taiwan. This is actually utilizing their Atlas lock. So kind of think along the lines of Demko of the Shark Lock. But we've got single form of deployment, which is a nice set of tits, full titanium. Love the milling pattern, which is on both sides of the knife. Now, I had owned the Engage last year, which actually also had the Atlas lock. Got rid of it because the the quote unquote lack of detent was horrible. Something has changed, people. They have done something because woo! Detent is dialed the fuck in on this one. Now, just look at this knife. It is absolutely gorgeous. I would call this like a gentleman's carry just because of the size. You got a nice slim handle, neutral handle at that. But it is a full-size knife. Comes in at 8 inches as far as your overall length. 3.5 is in this wonderful drop point blade. We're rocking S35 VN for the steel. Love the stonewash finish on the blade. I'm assuming that's a stainless steel pocket clip, and it is. No problem, though, considering the price point. But, you know, the solid lockup with their Atlas lock. You've got no blade play right, left, up, or down. Essentially locking up tighter than frog's ass. But I love this goddamn thing, man. I love it so much that I kind of regret not going back and buying the black one also. I mean, you couldn't beat the price. Taiwan made, $190 for this version, and $210, I believe. Maybe $220. I think it was $220. Maybe $210. $210, $220 for the blacked out version. I just think this is going to be a home run when it finally hits the stores. But 3.8 ounces as far as weight goes. 114 thousandths blade stock thickness. Full flat grind, essentially. Yeah, home run from cold steel. Now, let's go ahead and just give you two comparisons on this one. Let's go with the Vosteed Psyop, also with a finger-safe lock. And, of course, the OG, we're talking about the Demko AD 20.5. So there you see the FM-1 up against those. Now, I also forgot to mention that I had a good time at the Demko booth. Granted, they had no knives for me to purchase that I wanted. They had some 20.5s. I don't think they even had any 20s. I could be wrong, but they were sold out. That was actually our first stop we went to on day 2. And yeah, they were good to deal with. But that is the Cold Steel FM-1. Okay, now we're going to get to my first batch of Chinese dope. Got this from Artisan Cutlery. Big shout out to Mr. Russell. He was a delightful individual to deal with. This knife, believe it or not, didn't speak to me on day 2 when I first checked it out. Went back to spend a little more time with it on the last day of the show. This happened to be the very last one they actually had there. This is a Ray Laconico design, and this is the Revel. This came in at $200. And currently, this is my only Laconico knife in the collection, so I'm glad to have one of his designs back here at KnifeDope Studios. But here it is in the closed position. Slightly contoured titanium scales, frame lock locking mechanism. Really dig this milled titanium pocket clip. I have not really liked their pocket clips in the past. We've got blind screw mounting for that. Quarter length titanium backspacer. Integrated lanyard post for those weirdos. Now, we've got 2 forms of deployment, believe it or not. Pill-shaped cutout, and I've been able to front flip this hoe. Woo! Looking at a medium light detent. But here she goes in the open position. Full-size knife again, 8.07 ounce, or rather inches. Loving this drop point blade. It's giving me some type of tactical vibes. 3.54 inches of it. S90V for the steel, so you guessed it. Steel of the gods, 130,000 blade stock thickness, high flat grind. Love everything Ray Laconico does. 3.7 ounces was the weight on this. Cage ceramic bearings, plenty of room for your disengagement. You know, sometimes my biggest complaint with Artisan knives has been that lock bar access. Now, it's not a ton of it, but it's enough with that chamfer. Makes it enjoyable for the disengagement, so I've got no issues there. When I first checked the knife out, though, I was kind of second guessing because I felt it was a little bit slim. But the more I handled it, the more I actually felt that wasn't a problem. And for the price, I couldn't beat it. So let's go ahead and give you 2 quick ones for comparison on this. Let's keep it in the family, and let's go with the Satyr, also from Artisan. Now, they had a couple of new versions of the Satyr as well, but obviously I already had one, so I wasn't trying to do that. And then the last one is going to be the Kubi Momentum. Now, come to think of it, I didn't even go by fucking Kubi, people. I don't even know if they were there, but didn't go by Kubi. But here you see the Revel up against those two. So far, we're cooking, people. 2 for 2. Happy with both of them. I don't know if I favor this one more or the actual FM one, but it's a good problem to have. Okay, my most expensive purchase is also coming from overseas, and it's from a new company. This is from Jan Knives, and these are actually OEM by Riot. Now, this particular knife we're taking a look at is a collaboration between Christensen Knife Works. So that's Mr. Matthew Christensen. Love that designer. And this one is called the Chevron. Now, they had several versions of this knife. This one spoke to me the most out of them. I think the Bladeshow pricing on this was $320. Not sure if these are available just yet. They might be. But we've got multiple forms of deployment, front flipper, as well as that pill-shaped cutout. You know, Riot does some of the best jimping on their flippers, I will say. It's like a fine jimping. They actually take the jimping up and over the actual, you know, front flipper. So I opted for this carbon fiber version. We're going with like a, what do they call that goddamn twill? I'm going with like a twill carbon fiber, possibly, maybe. Fuck it, right? Wasn't too sure how I was going to feel about these, you know, these cutout speed holes, whatever. But, you know, the way they put the titanium behind it on that side, and then they give us the carbon fiber on the alternate side, I think it looks good. But the real star of the show, woo, is that blade shape. 7.3 inches as far as our overall length. We've got a gorgeous 3.25 inch drop point apparatus. Magna cum laude for the steel. That's right. These Chinese companies have started to actually do the Magna Cut properly. You know, if you've been following along, there's been a couple of other channels, namely LTK, had some knives tested, and they are hitting the mark. 135 thousandths blade stock thickness back here. Here on that front swedge, I had 109 thousandths. Cage ceramic bearings. I mean, it's Riot, people. What can I say? I dig it. Very, very much so. So yeah, 2 quick comparisons for you guys on that. We'll keep it as far as Riot OEM knives as well. We'll go with the legendary F5.5, baby. And then last up, we're going to go with this, the Mini Sweeney. So here we see that Chevron up against those. All in all, people, I had a fantastic time. You know, I had went there with the intention of buying as much American knives as I could afford. And, you know, there was, by the time I got there, like I said, I didn't get there till day 2. All the stuff that I really wanted was long gone by then. But still got a chance to experience a lot. Still had a great time with the homies. Because in the grand scheme of things, yeah, it's about the knives. But, you know, the interaction and the friendships that you make along the way made up for anything I may have felt about not winning a knife or not getting a knife. So I'm happy with it, you know. I can't wait till next year, goddammit. Did not shoot any content. I damn sure didn't, man. But that's another story for another day. But more importantly, I want to know what you fuckers think. How are you feeling about this haul? What would you have gone after if you went into Blade? Tell me all about it. Love you, mean it. Until the next time. Cut something, cut someone. Just don't cut yourself. Stay dangerous, fuckers.